Hey everyone, it's Natalie. I'm excited to let you know that I'm opening up spaces for collaboration and advertising and sponsorship on this podcast and on my YouTube channel. If you're a brand looking to grow in the wellness, family, or mindfulness spaces, I would love to collaborate with you. You can find a link to get in touch with me in the show notes, and you can always find out more about what I'm up to on natalietisdale.com. I'm joining you from my school job today. Usually I record at my home podcast studio, but I had so much going on today that I'm here in my school office. So it's a little bit different. If it sounds different, that's why. I think you're really going to like this topic today. I think it's a really important one. I'm talking about control, gaining control and letting go of control. Why do we feel the need to often control things? I have to admit something to you. I like feeling in control. It's been something that actually, as a parent, I've had to learn to deal with, because if we're not giving some control to our kids, then they're not gaining confidence and learning to do things for themselves. We have to be able to give away control to empower other people. You're going to love my guest today. I learned so much from Dr. William Stixrud. He is a clinical psychologist. He has a doctorate degree in educational psychology. He's a faculty member at the Children's National Medical Center. He's an assistant professor at George Washington University School of Medicine, and he's a best-selling author. He has so much insight into empowering our kids and our family members, because let's face it, our goal should not be to make our kids do well. Our goal should be to help our kids want to do well. So how do we do that? You're going to find out in the podcast today. Let's get started. Dr. Stixrud, I want to talk today about the need for control, why we think as parents, and then why our kids need control. What is that? I mean, we all do it, right? Is it a natural human thing?
Well, it's interesting that my co-author and I, Ned Johnson, we worked on our first book, The Self-Driven Child. We lectured together a lot before we started working on the book about topics related to kids' stress, motivation, not getting enough sleep, and various things. And we realized that everything that we recommend to parents that's useful to kids has to do with increasing kids' sense of control of their own life. And we know that what makes life stressful, you can summarize it with the acronym NUTS, and it's novelty, unpredictability, perceived threat, and a low sense of control. It's not being in that low sense of control, that as opposed to feeling helpless or hopeless or passive or just chronically overwhelmed. You have that healthy sense of control that I can manage this, I can make my life go in a direction that makes sense. And that is hugely related to mental health. And it's that low sense of control that's the most stressful thing you can experience. And so we figured, and also every place we look to understand, how do kids become the self-motivated, self-driven kind of adult or adolescent adult? All the arrows point in the direction of autonomy. We support autonomy. This is my life. I'm going to get out of what I put into it. And so we figured this must be a really big deal. And it turns out that a sense of control is related to everything. Everything positive you could want for your kid is related to that healthy sense of control. So it's a big deal. You think about it just from a mental health point of view. If you're anxious, your thinking's out of control.
Yeah.
You got all this unwanted thoughts that you can't stop. And if you're depressed, you got no sense of control. Yeah,
let's divide this up into the parent that feels out of control and then the kid that feels like they have no control. Because as a parent, I'm often thinking like, I need to figure this out. Like I need to figure this out for them. That gives me a sense of control. And then I feel like I'm doing good by my kids, but I'm actually not if I'm controlling everything.
Well, it's true. I mean, certainly we're wired. We're as mammals, we're wired to protect our young and to soothe them. But the challenge is, if we do all the protecting and the soothing and problem solving for them, they don't learn to do it themselves and just become anxious. And the way kids develop that confidence that they aren't anxious, I can handle stuff, they develop by handling stuff. And so if we're solving the problems for them, that it just doesn't develop in the way that we want. It actually makes kids more anxious and more dependent on other people.
So talk about the kids then and their need. And the first thing that comes to my mind, I have a college age daughter, a high school daughter, and a middle school son. And I did this when I was a kid, so I know that it's a thing. But my kids will say, well, now that you told me to clean my room, I don't want to. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that need for them to be in control of their own situation. But yet, as the mom, I'm like, if you're not going to do it, I want you to form good habits. So you hear what I'm saying, this balance of I want them to feel in control, but if they're not doing it, we've got a problem.
Yeah. What we're talking about is a sense of control. It doesn't mean that they get to be a boss of everything. Or
Okay.
they never have to do anything they don't feel like doing.
Mm-hmm.
It is this idea that we do that when kids feel forced, and the whole part of the premise is you really can't make a kid do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And once you make peace with that, it's really empowering. We talk about in our new book, we talk a lot about the language of a parent consultant. How do you give up the idea of using try to use force and to change kids? And we use the power of getting buy-in. It says that we don't try to lay stuff on kids. We ask questions tentatively, like, is there a way that I could help? Or I wonder what would happen if you did it this way. And I think with the example you gave here, most kids don't like to be told what to do. And so what we can do is when we're not frustrated, sit down. Let's talk about this a little bit. We're big fans of the collaborative problem. Let's talk about collaborative problem solving. Let's talk about this. That I have this urge to tell you when to clean it, but I know that you're capable of doing it on your own. But what would be the best way for us to work out where the chores get done, but where I don't have to tell you to do it? But what's suggestion from kids? They may not be perfect, but move in that direction of working things out with kids and getting out of being their boss or their manager. And think about yourself. We recommend in both of our books, think about yourself more as your consultant to your kid, because ultimately, whether they do this chore this week or next week, it's not that big a deal, obviously. But your relationship with them is a very big deal. And you're communicating confidence they can figure stuff out on their own is a very big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love this idea in the most recent book that you have of creating the motivation in your kids to want to do something versus, again, being forced to it, that intrinsic motivation. Yeah. Tell us about how we can help our kids find and discover their own motivation.
Yeah. So for Ned and I, my co-author and I, that our North Star in terms of understanding motivation is what's called self-determination theory. It's been around for 30 years, and it holds that for kids to be intrinsically motivated, and for us too, that you have to have three needs fulfilled. One is for a sense of relatedness or connectedness. One is a sense of competence. And the third is a sense of autonomy. And Ned and I interviewed one of the guys who developed self-determination theory when we were writing The Self-Driven Child, and said, we feel that autonomy is the most important. Is it? Absolutely. So if nothing else, remember that one of the best things we can do is support kids' sense of autonomy, that sense that this is your life, the sense that I don't always know better than you do. And we can do that in part by encouraging kids to make their own decisions. And I personally think that the best message you can give a teenager, besides I'm crazy about you, is that I have confidence in your ability to make decisions about your own life and to learn from your mistakes. And I want you to have a ton of practice doing that before I send you up to college. Our angle is that we want kids to be able to run their own life for at least 6 months at living at home before we send them up to college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And so that's why promoting that sense of autonomy, sense of control. And it doesn't mean that things that there's not consequences or that they get to do whatever they want, as I said. But it does mean that our role, from our point of view, our role is to think about how do we help kids figure out who they want to be, what kind of life they want, and how to get there, as opposed to thinking, I know what's best for them. Here's what you need to do. And here's the plan for you.
Yeah.
And I think so. I think that sense of control is hugely important, both in this motivational, the autonomy piece of motivation, but also in the mental health, because simply you got to when you have a healthy sense of control, as opposed to feeling helpless or passive or overwhelmed. The prefrontal cortex regulates the rest of your brain. The prefrontal cortex, which can think clearly, logically, put things in perspective, calm yourself down when you start to get stressed, regulates the rest of the brain. When you have a low sense of control, your stress response basically runs your brain.
Yeah.
And we want kids for kids to be in their right mind, and for us to be in the right mind. We want that healthy brain state. It's associated with a sense of control.
So I know there are people listening or watching this who are thinking, I'm too far gone. My kid is making bad decisions, or I have a teenager who is, again, making bad decisions, or I don't even know where I'd begin with this. Can one be too far gone to start implementing some of this? If you have a teenager who feels in control, but that type of control is, say, their language or using drugs or getting bad grades, like, where do you start in turning things around?
So, I mean, I think that there are, in both our books, we talk about, there are some limits to this idea. Think about yourself as a consultant. And one is, if kids are deeply depressed, they're suicidal, you put them in treatment whether they want to be in or not. You do a power play. If we think kids are seriously drug involved, we do the same thing. But short of that, we want to offer help, not try to force it. We want to, and I think that the question about is, are they ever too old? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Jesus, I mean, it's very common. Ned and I, before COVID, Ned and I would be lecturing about our book. Somebody in the audience, after about 10 minutes, say, "What if I've already screwed up my kid?" And well, you apologize. You say, I used to think that I needed to be in charge of your life, and I realized that's crazy. That you're a smart kid, you can figure it out, and I'm going to change my role here. I'm not. I realize also I couldn't force you to do stuff. And so we in our new book, we have a lot of this language that we can use. But I mean, I just, in our new book, we talk about this motivational interview, this way of communicating with kids that doesn't use no force. There's no pressure to try to change.
What does that really look like? Yeah, I want to hear that.
Well, what it involves is people are talking about a problem, and you kind of ask open-ended questions to try to understand it, and you reflect back to them. So what you're saying is that, here's what I'm getting is, I'm understanding this right. So we reflect back, and we wait for them to basically articulate what they call change talk, which is that smoking pot makes me feel great for a while, but and I'm relaxed. I don't worry so much about my homework, but I'm not getting anything done either. I can't play basketball. I can't practice basketball as hard as I need to. And kids listening for people to voice to articulate their own reason for change, really powerful. And I had a conversation with a mother who was a 27-year-old who had graduated just a couple of weeks ago, graduated from college, and was a star baseball player actually in college. Worked for a couple of years, but then got laid off. Girlfriend dumped him, got depressed, and was living at home doing nothing for 2 years. And the mother told me all the things she's tried to do, the kid to change. And I said, it seems to me that all the energy is focusing on get him to be different. And that's completely, that leaves you completely powerless. You really can't change another person unless they're asking you to help them change. Mm-hmm. And so I suggested ways that she can change the energy and let him know that she's not trying to get him to change, but she's that one possibility is not freeloading here. That if he's got problems, he needs to get treatment or whatever she could live with. But just changing the energy from trying to change him to being assertive about herself, about what she's willing to do and not willing to do, very quickly. This kid called me for the first time and wanted to talk with me, pick my brain, and basically initiating, help me here. And he hadn't wanted people to help him for 2 years. And it was simply that changing that energy. So it's never too late to use these principles, even with our adult children.
Since starting my own business, I have discovered something I never knew I would enjoy so much. What is it? Making my own graphics. Maybe you've seen my YouTube cover templates, Instagram quotes, and carousels, also Facebook infographics. Can I tell you how much fun I'm having and how easy it is to make these on Canva? I even do it on my phone. It's that easy. If you're looking for a simple way to make graphics for social media, maybe school, I'm a teacher as well, so I use it for that, or even for work, you're going to love Canva. There is a free version of the program, but the pro version, so worth it. It's $119, and you can also pay monthly. I share my designs with my team at school and at home, where we collaborate on designs. And I'm going to give you 45 days free of Canva Pro if you go to my website, natalietisdale.com/50. favorites. Just click on Canva once you get there. I may get a small commission if you purchase through this link, but that's just to keep my website and my podcast going. So thank you. Once again, natalietisdale.com/favorites and click on Canva. Yeah, I listened to you on another interview where you talked about this motivational talk. So let's give an example of that for my 12-year-old son who comes home from school. And, my first question to him, first year in middle school, is, do you have any homework? No, I did most of it in school. Well, do you have a little bit of homework? No, I'm pretty good. Well, can I see your homework? So for me, I'm just thinking he's not getting it done, or maybe he's getting it done. I'm not really sure. So I go back and forth on, do I go through it every single day with him and make sure, or do I just kind of let him fail a little bit, forget something, and then feel that sense of, oh, that didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Like, how would you guide me or another parent through that?
I asked myself 3 questions to orient my thinking about my relationship with my own children. And I have since they were very little. Whose life is it? Whose problem is it? And whose responsibility is it? And my sense is this is your son's life. His homework is his responsibility. If he's not doing it, that's his problem. And I think we weaken kids if we act like that it's not really their life. If we take responsibility for something that's theirs, or we try to solve their problems for them. So my recommendation, Natalie, is simply to say, have a talk with him and say, middle school is a lot different than elementary school. And I know there's a lot more organizational demands and kind of keeping track of all the homework. And I just want you to know, I'm willing to help you in any way I can. If it would be useful to you, you want to do a kind of a daily check-in with me and kind of let me show you what assignments are. We can brainstorm a little bit about how to get it done. If you want me to occasionally to check, go online and check the assignments, make sure I miss anything, I'm happy to do that. But from my point of view, that taking responsibility, part of what you communicate to him is, I don't trust you to do this. I don't have confidence that you can figure this out yourself. The worst thing in the world would be you're not doing your assignments. And I just think differently. I think that the worst thing in the world was that him resisting your attempt to help him chronically and starting to lie about his work and say, I've done it when I really hasn't. You want to change that energy. It's really, I'm sure you're a wonderful parent. I mean, and kids don't need perfect parents, but you can change that energy right now to think about yourself more as a consultant to him. His role is to help him figure out how to get his work done and do as well as he wants to do in school.
Yeah. And it's so interesting as a parent of 3, my kids, and you'll have to tell me in your experience, they are all completely different. What motivated one didn't work for the second. And now with the boy and the third, it's like, whoa, it's so different. And you can't ever expect, just as I learned one thing, I thought I could do it with the second one and it didn't work. That thing didn't motivate the second child.
Well, it's so interesting. I have 2, and I'm a little different stage in life. They're 40 and 36, but they're extremely different. My daughter is a brilliant, always is the top student, completely motivated, completely on top of schoolwork. Probably could have raised herself. Certainly, she could have educated herself. And my son is an incredible, and he's got ADHD and he had ADHD and learning disabilities, and school was hard for him for a long time. And yet I walk this walk. It's the same principles in Self-Driven Child in our new book, What Do You Say? I walk this walk, and so did my wife, in terms of, we played a consultant role for him. Is there a way that I could help? Should we get a tutor to help you out with that, as opposed to trying to force? And we focused on all the ways of just maintaining our confidence in him. You can figure stuff out. And then he got a PhD in psychology and is working at Goldman Sachs with the top executives there. And he's just a wonderful human being. And he and his sister are very different. They're very close, but they're very different. And so some of the specifics in the way that we interact with kids, we change the kids. But these principles, that it's really their life, that it's their responsibility, their problem, that our role, it couldn't be to get them to turn out a certain way. It couldn't be to make them do this or that. Our role is to help them figure out who they want to be and how to create the life that they want and how to support them in any way we can. That's what we think is our role as parents. And if we think about it like that, it's much less stressful for us and a hell of a lot less stressful for kids.
Yeah. Let's talk for a minute about this notion of what happiness is,
Yeah.
because, with one in college now, all I have is to relate it to is what we've gone through, and one who wants to study something in college. And I just keep thinking, my husband and I keep saying, let them follow their passions, then they will be happy and figure out what to do with it in their futures versus you need to study something serious or, let's talk about happiness and what that means, especially to young people.
So, I mean, that in our new book, we have a chapter. It's called it's called "Talking with Kids About the Pursuit of Happiness," and it's based in part on our perception that kids just have a very distorted view. Mm-hmm. Kids, most of the kids in all the areas where Ned and I lectured about our book, kids grow up thinking the most important outcome of their childhood and adolescence is where they go to college. Yeah, that somehow it's college and what that offers to you, top colleges, that it guarantees a happy life. Mm-mm. And it's complete and utter bullshit. And we thought, so we figured, let's start talking with kids early on. Here's what we know about what makes people happy. And accomplishment is part of it. I mean, we don't want, right. Yeah, it's just not it's not the main thing.
Right.
I mean, think about how many people really successful people who are miserable commit suicide. I mean, Ned and I were lecturing in Palo Alto a couple of years after they had the spate of suicides in high schools in Palo Alto. And the week before we were there, 2 Stanford undergraduates committed suicide, including an Olympic champion. And the year before, there were 31 suicides in Chandler, Arizona in 15 months. And we think the high achieving kids. And I think that we just have to kind of keep to recognize that going to elite school, having a prestigious job, making a lot of money, there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's not necessary. The kids grow up thinking in this area, they say it's either Yale or McDonald's. You go to Palo Alto, they say it's Yale or jail. And they have this crazy, crazy idea that if you don't go to a top college, you're going to have a C- life. And as a proud graduate of the University of Washington, I'll tell you, I wouldn't yield to anybody in terms of have a completely charmed life. And so I just think that if we can start talking with kids from early on, here's what we know about actually makes you happy. And achievement is, I want you to work hard. I want you to work hard to develop yourself so you have something useful to offer this world. Mm-hmm. But I want you to let you know that the relationships. I love how close you are to your friends. I agree. They're as important as your grades are. Mm. But I want you to really figure out what you really. We talk to your kids about their highest values. What's really important to you, because that meaning, that sense that what I'm doing is meaningful, is hugely related to happiness.
So start talking about things even when they're young like that it's not, you have to get into this school or you have to, we've always said, and it's been so rewarding now to hear our college daughter say, you always told me if I worked hard, it wasn't the A, it was, you saw me working hard. So the B was fine. Or, so starting that type of conversation, even when they're young.
Yeah, and certainly we have a chapter in a new book on motivation, and the work of Carol Dweck is where Carol Dweck talks about the growth mindset versus the fixed mind. The growth mindset is that I get better through my own efforts, and it makes sense to support kids, to give you the message that to really let them know I'm appreciating how hard you work at that, as opposed to their innate abilities. And so, encouraging kids to work hard, letting them know I love you as much if you work hard as if you don't. Mm-hmm. We don't want that conditional love and approval. You always got to work hard. You always got to do your best. We talk about that in our, I think, the chapter on expectations in our book, that you always got to do, well, which among us always does our best? And there's a cartoon of a kid coming to the parents and said, is this my best? And I think that we talk about that. The most important message you can give your kid is, I'm crazy about you. I love being with you. You're the most important thing in life to me. And I think that it's not that we don't set limits. It's not kids that were in the household, but that we focus on the things that are really important, including nothing more important than our relationship with our kids, because having a close, really feeling, when kids feel close to the parents, it protects them more than anything else from mental health problems.
Yeah. And when they don't feel judged, someone said years ago, and I've tried to implement this with all of my kids, and I try to be this to other kids, that, and I'm curious your opinion on this, that every young person needs at least 5 people that they feel like they could just say anything to, and outside of just their parents. So I think about that when these kids come rushing in my house from high school, and like, I hope I'm one of those. Anything, but at least 5. And so I add that up and I go, are there 5? Like, and maybe the number isn't as important as just people they know they can go to who won't be judgmental.
I love that. I love that, Natalie. And when Ned and I were working on our new book, we interviewed a bunch of children that older adolescents. And we said, who do you feel closest to in this world? And sometimes they said a parent, but very often it was a cousin or an older brother, or it was a teacher or a coach or a counselor. And we said, what is it that makes you feel close to this person? And invariably they said something on the order of, they listen to me without judging me, and they don't tell me what to do. And one of the things we say is that we want a close connection with our kid, but we don't want to worry that somehow, if our kid doesn't tell us everything, that somehow we don't have a good relationship. And when my son was in high school, there's certain stuff that I talk about sex or various things. He said, look, I talked with Coach Rose about that. I said, oh, good. And we would, because they have other people they can go to, as you said, who listen to them without judging them and can give them advice, but not try to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And I think that it's huge. And we were so struck, Natalie, by how consistently that's what kids said without any prompting.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where can people get more information on everything you're doing, your books? You just have so much to offer.
Well, thank you so much. And it's been a very rewarding kind of late stage part of my career here to write these 2 books. And so Ned Johnson and I, my co-author, so the first book is called The Self-Driven Child. And this new book is called What Do You Say? How to talk with kids to build motivation, stress tolerance, and a happy home. And so those 2, they're both, if I say so myself, they're great books. I was rereading part of one of them today, the new one. There's a lot of great stuff in it. And it's based on principles that just, really, that I think are just true. Part of the reason that the sense of control, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And the idea that you can't make somebody do something that's wrong. The idea that communicating in a way to keep a focus on that close relationship, that unconditional love, this stuff that's kind of universal, and it works. Again, you adapt it from kid to kid, but the principles are universal. Yeah. So it's these 2 books, and we have a group called selfdrivenchild.com. The selfdrivenchild.com is our website. We have a closed Facebook group for people who like our books, and we'll do these Facebook Live presentations, and let people know what we're doing and where we're lecturing and that kind of stuff.
I'm going to join that Facebook group for sure. I love your books. I love the way you approach this. It's a tough time, and yet the most beautiful and rewarding time as well, being a parent. So thank you for that.
Well, I've loved talking with you, Natalie.
Thank you. Well, we'll talk hopefully again soon. And I just appreciate your time today.
It was great.